Have you ever felt like dropping out of study because of a chronic illness, or have been too worried to start studying because you're worried the illness is going to get in the way? My name's Emily, and I get 100% where you're coming from with this. This is the first part of a three-part series that I've designed around surviving uni with invisible illness. So, studying with an invisible illness can be really, really challenging. I know firsthand, since I became unwell in 2014, that has been 6 years of my life that I have spent studying with these illnesses. So something that was very, very challenging for me at the start when I had no diagnosis. And so it wasn't just challenging at the start, it was challenging the whole way through. But I did learn to manage it a lot better. So having an invisible illness is really challenging because one of the best examples that I can think of that really expresses what this is like is one year I volunteered for exams to help to be a mock patient. So I'm studying exercise physiology, as you might know. And as that mock patient, one of the girls came in as the student to sit her exam, and she'd broken her arm. Now, absolutely awful, would never wish that on anybody, and I still think she's such a trooper for breaking her arm, having surgery and coming in and sitting that exam, like fantastic. But everyone was like, are you sure that you can sit this exam? Like you've just had the cast put on. They could see that she had that cast on, but she's like, no, I'll be fine. But everybody was falling over backwards to help this girl out. And I sat there and I was like, wow, that's really challenging for me to watch because I've spent 6 years in this system, and some exams I've turned up to and I've been, throwing my guts up because I'd eaten something wrong the day before, or feeling like I was going to faint because my POT symptoms had just flared up so much, or my fatigue was awful because I'd spent all week, staying up studying because I was so worried about needing to know everything for the exam. But people couldn't see that. Like once I'd put my makeup on in the morning and got going, people just could not see that I didn't feel well within myself. So it's very hard to see people reacting because somebody's in a cast when, you could feel just as bad because of these chronic conditions that you have going on. So in the first part of this series that I'm going to deliver today, this is going to be on campus life. So the first thing that I want to touch on is you do not have to study full-time. There are part-time options available to you. And look, I know that means that studying part-time, it's going to take longer. But I guarantee that if you study part-time within a capacity that is more suited to you, that you're going to have a better quality of life across the period that you do study, rather than trying to get it all done as quick as you can. Everyone is going to be different around that. So some people might find that they could study full-time, and some people might find that it's just not for them. But I highly recommend just look into it and just see what your options are. And just be aware that there's a very big difference between needing to study full-time and wanting to study full-time. So just take that into consideration when you're looking to enroll. And it's not something you have to do at the start of your enrolment. You can change as you go and cut back to study part-time, which is something that I actually did. So I started being enrolled in 4 units and I found that was too much, and then I cut back to 2 units. The massive thing to consider as well is all universities, TAFEs, any learning institute will have a disability support centre. It may come under a different name, but all of them will have a centre that's in place to assist people who have disabilities. Now for me, it took me quite a while to actually get on board with this. I had somebody tell me about it and explain that they'd had really good experiences with it. Looking back, I'm not really sure why it took me so long. Maybe I felt like I wasn't sick enough, or because, again, being an invisible illness, you can't see it. And also I wasn't quite diagnosed around that time either, so that probably influenced it too. But the disability support centres are just amazing. So there's heaps of things that they can do. A big one for me was that they assisted with parking. So instead of having a generic car park, which I know at some unis everyone's just fighting over car parks. So even if you have a generic car parks pass, you're not guaranteed a spot. So my experience was that I got upgraded into a more specialised park, and that was restricted to people who had a more expensive membership, but I didn't have to pay that parking membership or pass. I just paid the normal standard rate, and that was a massive lifesaver for me because it meant not only did I get to park on campus, I could park closer to where I needed to be, and I didn't have to walk so far or be stressed out because I was worried that I was going to be late for class, because despite having arrived 20 minutes early, I still couldn't find a park. So that was huge. Priority class times. So all unis will have a timetabling option where you can put in your preferences for your classes. My experience with that was that they would give you your first choice regardless of the demand, which is fantastic, because for me, getting up and going to classes early was very, very challenging. So it meant that I could schedule my timetable for a little bit later in the day. And it meant that I could schedule my classes out across the week as well a little bit better. So it was more well-paced, so to speak. So I could do, 2 classes on a Monday and 2 classes on a Tuesday instead of having to do 4 classes all on a Monday. And priority exam times and breaks during exams. So again, you could choose what time is best for you to be sitting your exams. You would also be sitting this exam in a separate environment. So you wouldn't be in with hundreds of people from your cohort. You just sit that exam in a smaller room, and then you get options for breaks. So I know the standard break time is usually about half an hour worth of breaks for a 2-hour exam. And during that time you can go to the bathroom, which was massive for me because I'd need lots of toilet breaks. If I was drinking lots of water, and I would just get nervous anyway, so I get nervous pee, so that's fantastic. I could go to the bathroom whenever I wanted to. I could bring food into the exam, and I could have just breaks to just give myself a bit of a mental wind down. So it can be really hard to focus for those 2 hours. So having that opportunity to step outside, have some water, have some food, and just switch off mentally before going back in was really, really great in terms of pacing. And I noticed a big difference from that. So, and then no medical certificates. So you do not have to provide medical certificates if you miss a class or if you need an extension on an assignment. They just can't ask for that, which is wonderful, because I know I did, and a lot of you would spend a lot of time going to your GPs and your specialists and things already. So having to make an extra trip to go and get a medical certificate, for example, if you missed a class, that can just be adding to time and cost for us. So so that's the Disability Resource Centre done. But most undergrads, I've noticed, have online lectures. So if you don't have to go into class and you can do that lecture online, then I really encourage that you take advantage of the online content. Because for me, I know we had lectures, we had practicals, and we had seminars. I found that doing the lectures online was great because I could do it in my own time, but then it meant that I had more energy or more spoons to put into the practicals and the seminars, where they can be a bit more engaging with other people. And in saying that as well, that brings me to the point of prioritize what you're doing. So if you can't, for example, so a really, really, really big thing for me was, like I said, I actually really struggled to get along to those 8 a.m. classes. So I had to think, where are my priorities? Do I want to go to an 8 a.m. class? So that would go from 8 a.m. to 10 a.m. and do that 2 hours of learning, and then not be able to do anything for the rest of the day because I pushed myself to do something that didn't agree with my body? Or do I, consult my peers? Do I get some notes? Do I try and catch up as best as I can on the topic and then have all of the rest of that day to be able to study, to be able to put time into assignments, things like that? So it's just prioritizing it, because sometimes we are going to miss out on things, and that sucks. It does. But there are other things that we can do to make up for that. All right, and then during practicals, because my undergrad was sport and exercise science and my postgrad was clinical exercise, I made sure that I was not, so I was involved in the practicals, but I was not the participant for those practicals because it was just involving exercise that was outside of my capacity. So I made sure that I did participate and, I'd do the testing and I'd guide the exercises, but some days there were also options where I just was like, I'm not going to participate, I'm going to take a step back and I'm going to observe today, because I just had things going on, like I wasn't sleeping or I'd been unwell in addition to everything else that was going on. And it's okay to be flexible around that and don't feel like you have to just push through and do everything. So in summary, the takeaways from this are: look into part-time study, check out the Disability Resource Centre, use your online resources, prioritise what's most important to you, and if you didn't get it, that's your health. And in practicals and seminars, don't feel like you have to be completely engaged the whole time. Like, it's okay to take time for yourself. It's okay not to be that participant. So I hope that this is helpful, this first part of on-campus life at uni for you. The next part in the series that I will be delivering will be around time management, assignments, and presentations. So getting into a little bit more of that nitty-gritty side of things on how we can manage the assessments. All right, thanks guys, and I'll see you for the next one.